John Adams and Thomas Jefferson were dear friends throughout the Revolutionary War. They even served together in France. They were thick as thieves. However, there was a rift that developed, and that played out in the press during the election of 1800. This rift developed during a conflict that Adams and Jefferson had regarding the First Amendment. See, under the Adams administration, the Sedition Act was passed in 1798, and John Adams was using that to prosecute newspaper editors who were critical of his governing. And Thomas Jefferson was like, you can't do that. That violates a little thing we have called the First Amendment. See, Jefferson saw it as Adams stifling dissent. And Jefferson saw that as a betrayal of the American people. Both Adams and Jefferson had respective newspapers that sort of acted like mouthpieces for them. Jefferson was backed by the Democrat-Republican press, and Adams was backed by the Federalist newspapers. And these newspapers engaged in what we would know today as character assassination. Jefferson was accused by the Federalist newspapers of being an atheist, a bastard, a coward, and a radical who would destroy the Constitution. They also accused him of being dead. Yikes. John Adams, on the other hand, was accused by the Democrat-Republican papers of being a monarch, overtly ambitious, out of touch with American values. And my personal favorite, because Jefferson was kind of a meme lord, a man who was without regard to that hideous hermaphroditical character, which has neither the force and firmness of a man, nor the gentleness and sensibility of a woman. I felt that burn 225 years later. Beyond newspapers, pamphlets and broadsides were also circulated. One famous example was The Prospect Before Us, which was written by James Callender. James Callender is famously known for leaking the scandal with Hamilton that I'm going to have to get to in another video. He was also thrown in jail by Adams, based on character assassination. Up until Donald Trump's election, this was viewed as the most contentious presidential election in history. And it also showed how the media and newspapers can sway an election. Thomas Jefferson would ultimately win, and he and Adams would not speak for a decade. It wasn't just personal, it was ideological. It reflected these deep divides in the new government and how Adams and Jefferson had different views for it, and even a few years after the war, they weren't aligned. And you know what? That's okay. A country that is in lockstep with itself is probably a cult. But even though these men interpreted the Constitution differently, they were sort of soulmates in a very odd way. After the decade, they began corresponding in letters, and they picked up right where they left off. And they remained dear friends through the end of their lives. Now, the most remarkable part about the ends of their lives is that Thomas Jefferson and John Adams both died on the same day. And if that weren't crazy enough, they both died on July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years to the day of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And the part of this that is so strikingly beautiful to me, John Adams' last words were, "Thomas Jefferson survives." And I like to think that because Jefferson had died first, maybe he showed up to John Adams' bedside and he helped him cross over. What do you guys think about that? I believe that the American experiment was ordained by God, and these men were something else. And I'm grateful every day to live in this country under their vision, even if that vision conflicts, even if there are different interpretations of originalist constitutional law. I'm very grateful. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and stay free.